A pregnant woman walked into a biker bar asking for help. What happened next will leave you speechless. It was one of those stormy evenings when the sky looked angry, the streets gleamed wet under flickering neon lights, and the wind carried a chill that whispered trouble. Inside Iron Souls, a rugged biker bar on the edge of town, the air was thick with cigarette smoke, laughter, and the clatter of beer bottles. The men inside were rough around the edges, scarred faces, leather jackets, tattoos that told stories of fights, loyalty, and loss. No one expected the door to burst open with a gust of cold air and reveal something so out of place, so fragile, it froze the entire room. A young woman, drenched from the rain, stood trembling in the doorway, her hands clutching her swollen belly. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear, exhaustion, and desperation. You could tell she hadn't eaten properly in days. And when she whispered, "Please, someone help me," even the toughest men in the room went silent. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. It helps us bring more true and emotional stories like this one to life. The woman's name was Emily. She was 26, about 8 months pregnant, and had been running for 2 days straight. Her clothes were torn, shoes muddy, and her face carried the kind of weariness that comes only from heartbreak and fear. She had fled from a life she no longer recognized, one filled with broken promises and bruises that told silent stories. Her boyfriend, Mark, had once been charming, but over time, he had turned into something dark, controlling, violent, unpredictable. That night, when he raised his hand again, Emily realized she couldn't bring a child into that nightmare. So she left, carrying nothing but a small backpack, a folded sonogram photo, and a desperate hope for safety. The Iron Souls biker bar was the last place anyone would think to look for help. Emily hadn't planned to end up there. Her car had broken down on the highway a few miles back, and the storm was relentless. She followed the faint light of a neon sign through the rain, not knowing where she was going, only that she needed to find shelter before her body gave out. Inside the bar, the men exchanged wary glances. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and a long scar across his cheek, stood up. His name was Cole Turner, a veteran biker who'd seen too much of the world's cruelty to be easily moved. He had built a reputation on fear and respect, not kindness. Yet, as he looked at Emily, shivering, soaked, and visibly pregnant, something shifted in his chest. Maybe it was because years ago, he'd lost someone who looked a lot like her. Maybe it was because, deep down, beneath the tattoos and the anger, he was still human. Cole approached her slowly, his heavy boots echoing on the wooden floor. Everyone watched as he took off his leather jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The warmth made her flinch, then tremble harder, not from fear, but from relief. He asked her name, where she came from, what had happened. She told him pieces of the truth, just enough to make him understand she was running from something dangerous. Cole didn't press for details. Instead, he told one of the men to get her some food and another to bring blankets. For the first time in days, Emily felt safe. But safety, as she would soon learn, is never permanent. That night, as thunder shook the sky, she sat in the corner of the bar, sipping soup while the bikers played cards and shared silent looks. They weren't used to this, helping strangers, especially a woman like her. Yet something about Emily brought out a long-buried softness in all of them. She thanked them again and again, her voice trembling each time. One of the men, nicknamed Tank, muttered that she didn't have to thank them, they were just doing what's right. But in truth, they all knew that what they were doing was something more. The next morning, as the storm cleared, a police cruiser pulled up outside the bar. Emily's heart nearly stopped when she saw it. She thought Mark had found her. But when Cole went outside to talk to the officer, he returned with grim news. The police were looking for a woman who'd gone missing. Emily, and her boyfriend had filed a report claiming she'd stolen from him and run away. They didn't know the full story, but they were searching. Emily broke down, shaking and crying, telling Cole everything she had tried to hide. The abuse, the threats, the fear that if Mark found her, he'd take her baby. Cole listened in silence, jaw tight. When she finished, he told her firmly, "You're not going anywhere. You're safe here." For days, the bikers hid her in the back of the bar, bringing her food and helping her rest. They were rough men, but they treated her gently, like something precious. As she recovered, she began to see a side of them no one outside ever did, a family of outcasts who protected one another fiercely. Cole told her that every man in that room had a past they weren't proud of. Some had been in jail, some had lost families, some were still paying for mistakes they couldn't undo. "But everyone deserves a second chance," he said one night as they sat by the fire behind the bar. Emily nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, realizing that maybe fate had led her exactly where she needed to be. But Mark wasn't done. A week later, late at night, headlights appeared down the dirt road leading to the bar. Cole sensed trouble before anyone else did. He told Emily to stay hidden, and within minutes, he and his men were outside, standing in the rain again. A black truck rolled to a stop, and Mark stepped out, rage burning in his eyes. He had found her. He yelled that she was his, that she had no right to leave, that she'd ruined his life. Cole didn't move. He just stared at the man, the kind of stare that makes cowards rethink their choices. Mark tried to push his way inside, but before he could take another step, Cole blocked him. He told him calmly, "You touch her again, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." The bikers stood behind him, silent and unmoving. It was clear, Emily wasn't alone anymore. Mark spat curses, shouted threats, but when he saw the look in Cole's eyes, he hesitated. Finally, he got back into his truck and drove off into the darkness. That night, Emily gave birth. The storm had returned, wild and relentless, as if the world itself wanted to test her one last time. The bikers turned the back room into an improvised delivery space, doing everything they could to help. Cole stayed by her side, holding her hand as she screamed and cried and fought through the pain. And when the baby's first cry echoed through the room, everyone went silent. A little boy, healthy, tiny, and beautiful, came into the world. Emily looked at him, then at Cole, tears streaming down her face. "His name," she whispered, "will be Chance." Cole smiled softly. "That's a good name," he said. Weeks passed, and Emily slowly began to rebuild her life. The bikers became her unexpected family. They helped her find a small place to live nearby, watched over her, and made sure no one from her past came near again. Cole often stopped by to check on her and the baby, always bringing something small, a teddy bear, diapers, sometimes just a smile. He never said it, but everyone knew that Emily and her child had changed something inside him. They had reminded him that even the hardest hearts can still feel, still heal. One day, months later, Emily came back to the bar, not desperate this time, but smiling. She held Chance in her arms and told Cole she wanted to thank him properly. "You saved me," she said quietly. "But more than that, you gave me a reason to believe in people again." Cole looked down at the baby and then back at her. "No," he said, "you saved us." As Emily walked away into the sunlight, Cole turned to his men and said something none of them expected. "From now on," he told them, "we don't just ride for ourselves. We ride for people who need us. For second chances." And that night, they carved a new line into their club's creed: "Iron souls, protecting the broken, honoring the brave. Sometimes, miracles don't come from heaven. Sometimes, they walk into the unlikeliest places, carrying a child, drenched in rain, and begging for help, and they change everything. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories that remind us that even in the darkest places, there's always a light waiting to shine.